Good morning. Welcome to the very first video service held by UUFS. We're so very glad that you've joined us here this morning as we rise together as a congregation to meet the challenge of these strange times. We begin our service this morning with the sharing of a very powerful video in recognition of Mother's Day. We hope that you enjoy this moving rendition of Julia Ward Howe's famous Mother's Day proclamation. A Unitarian suffragist and peace activist, she wrote these words in 1870, but they still resonate with us today. Thank you for your patience for just a moment as we bring that video up.
Arise, all women who have hearts.
Whether your baptism be that of water or of tears.
Say firmly, we will not have great questions decided by irrelevant agencies.
Our husbands shall not come to us reeking with carnage for caresses and applause.
Our sons shall not be taken from us to unlearn all that we have been able to teach them of charity, mercy, and patience.
We women of one country will be too tender of those of another country,
to allow our sons to be trained to injure theirs.
From the bosom of the devastated earth, a voice goes up with our own.
It says, disarm.
Disarm. The sword is not the balance of justice.
Blood does not wipe out dishonor, nor violence indicate possession.
As men have often forsaken the plow and the anvil at the summons of war.
let women now leave all that may be left of home for a great and earnest day of council.
Let them meet first as women to bewail and commemorate the dead.
Let them solemnly take counsel with each other as to the means whereby the great human family can live in peace.
Each learning after their own time the sacred impress, not of Caesar, but of God.
In the name of womanhood and of humanity,
I earnestly ask that a General Congress of Women without limit of nationality
may be appointed and held at some place deemed most convenient and at the earliest period consistent with its objects.
To promote the alliance of the different nationalities.
The amicable settlements of international questions.
the great and general interest of peace.
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 It is my great pleasure to welcome each of you here this morning. There are many reasons that we join together in this virtual space. Probably as many reasons as there are faces on our screens. To find community, to seek personal truths, to enjoy a space where questioning is welcomed and encouraged, to be nurtured, to explore new ideas, to find comfort, and to draw strength to confront life's many challenges. Whatever your reasons are for being here this morning, please know how much it means to us that you are here, that you are present with us. Perhaps more than ever before, we need one another and we need our community. John will be lighting our chalice today, and the words should sound familiar. With all the things that have changed around us in the last several months, there's comfort to be found in familiar words. With this lighting of this flame, we acknowledge the light of truth, the warmth of community, and the fire of commitment. Our reading this morning is entitled, May Means Mother's Day, and it was written by Katie Lee Crane. I'm going to trust Hallmark and daddies and 6-year-olds and grown-up kids who are mommies themselves to honor the mothers among us as they deserve to be honored. With brass bands, flags flying, breakfast in bed, and kitchens cleaned up afterwards. I wish for those mothers a memorable day, full of love and laughter. Sadly, I don't trust Hallmark to remember the feelings of women who don't fit Mother's Day in quite the same wonderful way. There are no cards on the rack for the women who gave up children for adoption, never to see them again. No cards for the women who faced the painful and difficult choice to end a pregnancy. No cards for women who desperately want to conceive and bear children and cannot. No cards for women who have lost children of any age, or for those women whose children have abandoned them in anger. There is little consolation for them on a day so full of motherhood. Every year when Mother's Day rolls around, I wish there was just a little less hype about traditional motherhood and a little more acknowledgement of the not so traditional mothers in our midst. People who come in all colors, shapes, sizes, genders, and ages. And more than anything, I wish there was a lot more empathy for those who suffer, because as mothers are being honored, they don't fit in quite the same wonderful way. Let us honor them all on this day. Women who conceived, women who bore, women who reared, women who lost, women who let go, women who made different choices, and people of any gender who mother. Happy day. May each of you know your worth to all of us. There's no doubt during these times that each of us may have experienced things which have brought us joy, both expected and possibly unexpected, as we've learned how to be in this new reality. There's no doubt as well that there have been sorrows that have been experienced. As our congregation continues to adjust and puts in place all these wonderful pieces of technology that allow us to stay connected, we're asking that for now, our Wednesday Zoom meetings be a place where you can bring these joys and sorrows and share them with our community. Now, while we cannot replicate online some of the important aspects of an in-person service, we can still hold fast to some of our traditions. One of them being the sharing of the people, things, events, circumstances for which we are grateful. This morning, our board president, Diane, has a special message for us about gratitude.
Good morning, everyone. I want to thank those who have so quickly answered the financial call. As John mentioned in his letter, we aren't where we need to be, and much of it can be attributed to the quarantine and lack of in-person collections. While we're grateful to be able to meet virtually, it does present its own set of issues. We publicly show our gratitude to our members and friends who do selfless acts of kindness for and on behalf of our fellowship. I feel it to be just as important to recognize those who answer the financial call when we're in need, for without them, so much else would suffer. Although currently distanced, we are still a community, still a family, with obligations and responsibilities. So thank you, thank you, thank you to those who have already stepped up so quickly after receiving John's letter. The Wolf family, Rachel Stein, Carol Steffi, Kitten John, Diana Wagner, Liz Parker, thank you for donating so quickly. And to Ken and Jan Montville, your extremely generous donation stunned me to silence, which all of you know is no small feat. I am just kidding. We are so grateful and accept it with a loving heart. Please know that these are just the ones I'm aware of. Some of you may have already sent checks and I'm unaware of those. But these are just the ones I know of right now, about $2,000 in total. It's incredible. I am so grateful, and I look forward to personally thanking so many more of you. I love you all.
It's a privilege to turn things over now to John, who will be speaking to us about, among other things, that fire of commitment that we speak of so often.
Thank you, Jen. Today is, of course, Mother's Day. And so for those of you who celebrate mothers or mothers who expect to be celebrated, I wish you a most sincere, happy Mother's Day. But as we saw in that reading by Katie Lee Crane, a holiday honoring mothers might be much more complicated. For some, Mother's Day can bring varying degrees of pain. As she writes, let us honor them all on this day. Women who conceived, women who bore, women who reared, women who lost, women who let go, women who made different choices, and women of any gender who mother, and people of any gender who mother. Yes, we should honor them all, whatever their choices. But today I want to think about a slightly different topic. And Mother's Day seems to be a good jumping off point. As we saw in the opening sequence, Mother's Day was originally conceived to have a much different focus. Julia Ward Howe of the Battle Hymn of the Republic fame originally conceived it, as you heard, as a day dedicated to peace. She was, in fact, a Unitarian and a pacifist and a suffragette. She wrote that proclamation well before women received the right to vote. The sword of murder is not the balance of justice, she wrote. Blood does not wipe out dishonor, nor violence indicate possession. As men have often forsaken the plow and the anvil at the summons of war, let women now leave all that may be left of home for a great and earnest day of counsel. It was a bold, profound, and radical idea. Like many bold, radical ideas, though, it was not to be. Mother's Day might have been a day for heroic men and women throughout the world to stand strong and say, our wives and husbands, sisters and brothers, men and women of every nation shall truly study war no more. But of course, that didn't happen. The emphasis has shifted from a call for mothers to be bold agents of change to mothers as objects of love and affection. Now, not that mothers shouldn't be honored, they certainly should, but the forces of saccharine sentimentality have made Mother's Day kind of a pale shadow of what it might have been. Still, you have to admire the courage and commitment it took for Howe to make such a proclamation. They were strong words, prophetic words spoken because the world needed to hear them. By all accounts, Howe was quite the formidable woman. There have been lots of strong women throughout history, of course, women of courage who were bold advocates for truth, justice, equality, and making the world a better place. Harriet Tubman, Eleanor Roosevelt, Rosa Parks, Jane Addams, Helen Keller, Ruth Bader Ginsburg, Malala, Greta Thunberg, and countless others whose names we will never know. This week, we again lit our chalice with reference to the fire of commitment. I think that's what Howell and all those women had, the fire of commitment. In some, it was a bright, brilliant flame flaring in the darkness with bold action. In others, it was a slow, steady, smoldering ember, keeping truth and hope alive through less sensational acts. But in each of them, it was there, casting the light of truth on an injustice that must be rectified, or speaking out for a cause that the world needed to hear. Today, of course, we probably see ourselves in a much more sophisticated light. Howell's language seems dated and floral to our ears, how very Victorian. We have social safety nets and social services, social media and computers, smartphones and streaming video. Women and people of color have the vote and can run for office. But the current pandemic has made me realize just how thin our veneer of civility really is. How fragile is our society? How Vigilant we must remain if we as a nation are not to devolve into factionalism and tribalism and outright barbarism. In 1776, Thomas Paine wrote, "These are the times that try men's souls." 100 years later, in 1870, when Howe wrote her proclamation, it was still true. And I gotta tell you, when I see our national leaders denying basic scientific truths, when I hear the petty, bullying rhetoric of those in leadership, when I see the angry faces of armed, unmasked demonstrators screaming into the faces of police, when I hear of unarmed Black men being gunned down while jogging, when I hear the half-truths and conspiracy theories being proffered by national news outlets, I realize that these too are the times that try our souls. As Unitarian Universalists, we believe that we must continually aspire to seek the light of truth. And we believe that one way we do that is through the warmth of community. But none of the seeking or the warmth can happen without commitment. Seeking truth and building beloved community doesn't happen accidentally. It must be intentional. It must be a conscious decision. And it's not always an easy one. In fact, it's sometimes filled with disappointment, anger, heartache, and frustration. Sometimes it requires sticking our necks out and being uncomfortable. And I know this next part is somewhat preaching to the choir because so many of you have already done this, but I'm going to remind those of you who haven't of the letter I mailed to you this past week. Obviously, we cannot pass the basket here on Zoom, but financially supporting UUFS and Unitarian Universalism is one way that you can show your commitment. So, in case you didn't see it, we have established a PayPal account to make giving easier. I invite you to please consider making both a one-time gift and raising your pledge so that UUFS can continue to be the voice of liberal religion in Salisbury. We depend on you, our friends and members, to keep this beloved community alive. The light of truth, the warmth of community, and the fire of commitment. Perhaps the reason we here at UUFS seem to hold that phrase so dear is because it reminds us of who we want to be. It calls us to our best selves. Friends, as we begin to come out of our quarantines, as things settle down a bit, as we move into this new world which none of us were prepared for nor could have envisioned, as we move on to the next crisis, let us not forget who we are and who we aspire to be. Let us be bold. Let us be courageous. Let us speak out with prophetic words as Julia Ward Howe did. Though we are separated physically, we must continue to find new and innovative ways to tell the world the truth that we all hold dear. In the face of the world's cynicism, hatred, and tribalism, let us proudly, boldly proclaim, we are Unitarian Universalists, the people of open minds and open hearts, people who are committed to the light of truth, the warmth of community, and the fire of commitment. And then let us do the work to make it so. Amen, and thank you.
Thank you, John. Our closing words come to us today from Burton Carley. Cheered by our community, blessed by our covenant, uplifted in mind and renewed in spirit, go forth with courage and in peace to meet the days that come. We'll extinguish our chalice today once again with some familiar words. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we hold with us until we meet again. And now, once again, I'll turn it over to John for our benediction.
These are words by John Moran. In the end, it won't matter how much we have, but how generously we have given. It won't matter how much we know, but rather how well we live. And it won't matter how much we believe, but how deeply we love. Go in peace, go in joy, go in love. And thank you all so much for being with us today.
Now, if you would like to kind of hold out for just a moment and enjoy a bit of virtual coffee hour, I will be unmuting everyone. So please feel free to stay, enjoy some community, enjoy some coffee, and we'll keep this room open for a little bit with everyone unmuted.
And talk amongst yourselves. Well, hello, everyone. It is face.
I have a question.
Oh, yeah, that's what happens when you unmute everybody.
PayPal. I have a question about PayPal. Is PayPal for donating to a particular fund, like stewardship or ministry fund, or how
It's not working.
I'm muting everybody because of the background noise, just so it's clear. Right now, no, it is. If you need it for specifically for stewardship, please put it for that. PayPal is just for convenience. Please keep in mind they do take a fee. We're grateful for everything we get. Please, I'm not diminishing that. However, if you want to send something via check for your one-time thing, that's cool too. But if it just comes in through PayPal, it's just a general donation, unless it's marked for stewardship. Yes, ma'am.
Suggestion.
Oh, I marked mine for the minister's fund. Will that work?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay.
Yes, Jim?
If everybody mutes themselves, except when they want to speak, and unmutes yourself when you want to speak, we can control all the background noise and everything much better and kind of have sharing where everybody can hear the person who's speaking.
That would be super. I advise everybody to do that.
Thanks, Jim.
Where is my little microphone?
I can't do that.
Yeah. Right.
We're all playing with technology, aren't we?
Do you want your seat back? Oh, I'm giving Jen the seat back.
And I'm going to stop the recording.